Walking simulators. Suppose you don't know what walking simulators are. They are narrative focused games where you're mostly just walking along the given path the game provides you, with little to no combat and the occasional deviation now and then to spice things up. It's also a genre of games you either be engrossed in by the narrative or be bored out of your mind. At least that's how they're presented as by some. I've not played many, more because it's the kind of game I need to be in the right mood to play, and if my attention span doesn't die during it. But when I find one that clicks, it can be a good time. And this game is a prime example of that. Still Wakes the Deep, a game by the Chinese Room, originally called The Chinese Room, with no spaces, is a studio that started out as a team of modders for games like Half-Life 2 and Doom 3, later creating original titles starting with a remake of one of their previous mods for Half-Life 2, Dear Esther, which went on to be incredibly well received, leading to the studio to create the likes of the pseudo-sequel to Amnesia The Dark Descent, Amnesia Machine for Pigs, and the spiritual successor to Dear Esther, Everyone's Gone to the Raptures. Games I've not played. I own the latter two, but I never felt like playing them for whatever reason. Well, at least for Machine for Pigs, I didn't hear the greatest things from it, and I kinda avoided it because of it. Maybe I'll give it a shot one day, though. However, this game in particular caught my eye after seeing it during an Xbox showcase some time ago. It was enough for me to pre-install it on my Series X since it was also being available on Game Pass, and I kinda forgot about it, not gonna lie, up until its release. But after playing the first hour, I knew it was something I was gonna really like. The original pitch for it was John Carpenter's The Thing, but instead of being set on an Antarctic research base, it's set on an oil rig in the North Sea on the offshores of Scotland, and that was enough to convince me, really. I watched the original 1982 flick for the first time earlier this year, and I loved the hell out of it. To get back to today's game, I greatly enjoy it. But, I have to state this now, since it's so recent, if you have any interest in playing this game, I suggest you stop watching this video now, as I'm going to be spoiling much of this game. I think this is a game you should definitely play if it's your kind of thing. It's on Xbox, Series, consoles, PS5, and Steam, and despite it also being on Game Pass, I still recommend buying a copy anyways. Support smaller devs when you can, or at least AA productions like this. If you don't care for spoilers, or if you already played through the game, then stick around and let's talk Still Wakes the Deep. It's the Christmas season of 1975, and our main lead, Cameron McLaren, or Kaz, receives a letter from his wife hinting at a possible divorce after leaving her and his kids to work on the oil rig called the Beira D as an electrician with his friend Roy to hide from the police after an incident with a man named Billy Chamberlain. Everything at the rig isn't going well either, as Kaz is soon fired by his boss Rennick after learning of the incident, so it's not a good day for Kaz. Also, this game is very much Scottish, as everyone's got pretty thick accents, which is probably why the subtitles are on by default. Nothing against the Scottish, of course. Love me the Scots. It just can be a bit difficult to understand what some of the characters are saying due to the thick accents.
Aye.
Speaking of, you are in the shite, wee man. Rennick got a letter this morning from the mainland and he's been up to high dough ever since. Heard he's gunning for you.
That's just brilliant.
Christ, I need a smoke. Can I find my lighter anywhere?
Take mine. I don't need it anymore, honestly.
You're a fucking lifesaver.
I'm going to get breakfast.
Alright. I'll see you for darts tonight. We'll put a wee picture of Rennick up on the board for you.
Sounds like a plan. See ya.
Before he can get sent back to the mainland, something startles the rig and Kaz falls off it while trying to save a worker. Despite falling from such a great height into the water, which, if you don't know, is basically like smacking concrete at that height, and if that didn't kill him, the freezing waters will likely do it. Kaz miraculously survives the fall, but now something's wrong with the rig. Everything has gone dark, and no one knows why. It doesn't take long for Kaz to find out what, as the drill hit something, and now it's spreading throughout it. Not only that, but whatever it is turning the crew into God knows what. Kaz meets Finlay in engineering to learn that another crew member named Gibbo tried to attack her after coming into contact with the now contaminated oil. I do want to highlight how the beginning does a damn good job of building up the suspense. Having us sneak through the same room that Gibbo is in, and only hearing the cries and screams, while withholding from Kaz, and us the player, what exactly has Gibbo become. letting the imagination run wild for a moment in these tight claustrophobic corridors. It's simple yet effective horror that spooked me out the first time going through here, and this game's kind of filled with a lot of that, which I greatly appreciate. It's not filled with too many jump scares and the like. Kaz makes it back to the canteen to see Roy is alive, and goes out to find any lifeboats they can use to escape. Thankfully there's still one left and it fell into the ocean. Great timing. Before returning to Roy, Kaz finds a working phone and receives a call from Rennick telling him and whoever else he can find to get to the helipad to evacuate while they still can. Meanwhile, he's still chewing Kaz out in the process. The bastard. Trust me, this is a running theme with his character too. He's a complete fucking bastard in this game.
Attention crew of the Beira! All personnel need to get to their nearest evacuation point. And don't you all get too excited now. You'll all be back at work in 15 minutes once I get all this nonsense straightened out.
Fucking bastard.
On the way back, Kaz runs into a now mutated Tauros, and this is where we're properly introduced to what we'll be encountering throughout, these grossly similar remains of the crew. And it's apparent where the Thing influence is seen, as these creatures are fleshy and disgusting, but also have some pretty cool designs. Always been a sucker for these sort of body horror-esque designs and mutations. It was one of my favorite parts of the original film. It's not the same thing, as it's not trying to hide amongst the crew and kill them off one by one, but instead just doing whatever it can to spread to anything it touches. So it's more of an eldritch horror than anything else, but does share a similar aesthetic. Then again, you can say that the Thing is kind of an eldritch horror, combined with a cosmic horror since it came from space initially, and clearly that H.P. Lovecraft could have been an influence for the original work, so make it what you will, I guess. Kaz returns to Roy to give him the news, and Roy is unable to make it to the pad as he needs his insulin. Roy tells him to go on anyways and get off the rig while he can, and contact a support ship to save the rest of the crew, if possible. The only way to the pad is to cross the deck, and that's where we also see another mutation in. Like, these monsters are swinging in the midair, carelessly but still elegantly in a way, with their tendrils drilling into the ground. Combined with the ever-present fog, it makes everything even more unsettling. Not to mention the sound it's making too. Speaking of which, this game and its art direction look incredible. There are still some genuinely breathtaking shots while setting an incredibly foreboding mood, like with the aforementioned murky green fog that covers the whole place for the beginning of the game. However, I do have one little nitpick when it comes to the presentation. Just like many games of this generation, the game gives you the choice between two different graphic settings, quality and performance. I usually always go with the performance setting since I want the highest FPS possible. Unless the performance itself is unstable and jitters all over the place, then I'll probably just drop it down to 30. In this game's case, thankfully, on performance mode, it runs at a buttery smooth 60 FPS, and I experienced no real game-breaking glitches of the like. But some of the smaller objects still run at a lower frame rate on this setting, so that you'll likely not notice unless you have a keen eye for this sort of thing. When I do notice it for the likes of some characters, then it can take me out of the immersion a bit. Again, it's not a big deal. It's just a downside to make sure this game maintains its frame rate. Plus, this isn't an issue that's exclusive to this game. The most important option, though, you should turn off is the motion blur. Good God, I'm feeling sick looking at this. Kaz makes it to the pad, but Rennick and the pilot fly off anyways. However, the chopper soon ends up crashing into the rig. Kaz gets in contact with another worker, Brody, and he tells Kaz to go down to the generators as they're malfunctioning, and they need him online in order to use the radio. Kaz has to go through administration to reach them in.
Christ!
Oh, sweet Jesus. Looks like the only thing left of Rennick is ahead, and now he's chasing us. I guess you can say Rennick is an even bigger dickhead now, though. Yeah, that's a bad pun. Kaz escapes Rennick and finds Finlay again in engineering, explaining to Kaz that the Brainiac has taken a lot of damage from the incident earlier, but still agrees to help him restart the generators. After sneaking around another infected crewmate, the two get the power back on, but Brody calls Kaz to inform him that the rig is now sinking and has to get down to the pontoons. There they can use the tension wrenches to buy them some time. Kaz does his half, not before finding more of the remains of the crew. And I think what makes this infection more terrifying and depressing at the same time is knowing that those who are infected still have some awareness of their situation. I think of Gibbo in the beginning, where he's screaming for help, not knowing what to do, but still seemingly being forced to kill and convert his once friends into the same thing he's become. But at the same time though, someone like Adair, an individual who already was spiteful towards Kaz, is using his now newly acquired form to hunt down Kaz in engineering, while still shit-talking him in the process. Pretty sure he's still mad about the hairdryer joke from earlier.
I'd like to see you try and do my job. You wouldn't know a spark plug from a fucking hairdryer.
Watch your mouth, McCleary.
I think in some way the infection makes everyone more aggressive, bringing out more of the negative emotions within them. Oh, damn it, hold on. Yeah, this game won't let you proceed unless you interact with the heaters for the few times you encounter them. It probably is just to add to the immersion, because I sure as hell would use one if I had to swim through freezing waters. It's just a slight pace breaker, and it doesn't really add much to the overall gameplay. Kaz helps Brody redirect the flare gas and give Adair a light. Afterwards, Kaz, Brody, and Finlay meet up to discuss what to do next. Roy interrupts them via the radio, asking for anyone to help him get his insulin as he's stuck on the roof of accommodation. Despite the warnings from Brody and Finlay, Kaz rushes up to try to save Roy, but unfortunately he was too late as Roy passed. After one last run-in with Rennick, where he ends up leaving his affected self to drown, which to be honest, he kinda deserved it given that he technically started the whole incident to begin with, giving the orders to drill through whatever this is to Gibbo, not to mention trying to leave everyone behind to save his own skin. Kaz makes it back to Finlay, and Brody via the radio gives them the bad news that he's unable to make it back from the marine sector. He ends up sacrificing himself to ensure that the rig stays afloat, and Kaz stays with him on the radio before he cuts to silence. Finlay snaps and runs off to use the lighter Kaz gave her earlier to blow up the rig, using all the oil and gas that was trapped within it. Kaz gives chase after her, but Finlay ends up getting crushed by falling machinery. Before she can pass, Finlay gives Kaz the lighter and tells him to destroy whatever this thing is, so that it cannot reach the mainland. Kaz, knowing what must be done, ignites the rig, destroying the creatures, and leaving nothing behind. Kaz witnesses visions of his wife Sue and his kids, then awakens to see that he's back in his flat, but it's all just a memory. As soon as he walks out the door, there's nothing but the ocean. Sue writes one last letter saying that she wants to make amends with him, and waiting for him and Roy to return home, unaware of her husband's sacrifice. Ending still waits the deep story. It's not a very long game. It only took around 3 hours to go through it, but it doesn't waste its time. I feel like my summary doesn't do the game's story justice, as I genuinely do think it's great. The voice acting helps make these scenes even better, as everyone gives their all with their performances. The scene with Kaz reacting to Roy's passing, and his final conversation with Brody are some of the best acting I've heard in a while.
She really loved you. So did my girls. Wait, what am I going to tell them? Oh, sorry. Your Uncle Roy's not coming home. Aye, I know. Me and Ollie. I love this big man, do you hear me? I loved him.
Kaz himself is a great character too. Like, what I like about him is he doesn't blindly follow orders. Like, he's fully well aware that he knows he doesn't want to do many of the things that happen throughout the game, but he has to do it anyways because he needs to survive in order to see his family again, which makes his character a little more believable and more realistic in a way.
Wave or something so I know you're receiving.
Prick.
Understood. Godspeed.
Though, given the amount of times he gets tossed around and hits his head, I'm surprised he didn't get concussion throughout it. I'm also glad it's not another it's all in the character's head sort of plot, because it's not an inherently bad premise for a story. I just find it more annoying as it comes off a bit cheap. It makes me feel like all the events that led up to this was for nothing. I kinda had that feeling that was the case originally, given that Kaz somehow seemingly surviving the fall, but thankfully that's not the case. As for the actual gameplay itself, it's a walking sim again. You're doing a lot of walking. There's surprisingly a lot of platforming elements than I expected. Thankfully you're not doing Mirror's Edge-like platforming in this game. You know what throws me off though? Is the swimming. You do a lot of it for the latter half of the game, and it doesn't feel great. It's sometimes I feel like I'm not moving at points, and while there are things in the environment you can grab onto underwater, it can still feel a bit janky at points. I never died from drowning in this game, thankfully, so I think this may be a little bit more forgiving, but I honestly think it'd probably be the low point for the game for me. Stealth is very basic, however, which for this kind of game, I think it's fine. There are objects you can throw to distract the monsters and lockers you can hide in, but I never really end up using much of these, as just crawling into the several hiding spots throughout is more than enough, though the game really wants you to stay crouched at all times, because simply just walking gives away your position. There are a few times where you have to mash the button to escape the tendrils that are attached to you, which seemingly are random and honestly not great. Kind of feel cheap in a way. I guess what is the greatest detriment to this game, however, like the many others in its genre, it's sort of a one and done sort of game. But I don't think that's a bad thing inherently. Sometimes that one playthrough is all you need to stick with you for a long time. I'm not like that with several other games. I sure as hell know I won't be forgetting this experience. And for $35, I think it's a good deal. $35 can be a little much for some people, I imagine, but I think it's worth it in the end. You should definitely play Still Wakes the Deep. Well, I've been Sonic Man, and I thank you for watching. Have a good day, or night, or whatever, and take care.
Юрих ван на чулт хон ташок хат